Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about how money cannot buy happiness and how there are things that are more important than money. This is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. I was just trying to put my thoughts together to figure out a way to actually construct this in a way that doesn't make me sound like I'm being resentful. Because that is an assumption that people make. They do assume that everybody wants to be wealthy, that money buys happiness. They assume that everybody's operating from the same motivations. And I don't think that is necessarily true. I think there are people who are built from a completely different cloth. I don't think the desire for wealth is universal. I think there are people who do live their lives chasing after money, and this is the most important thing to them. But it's not necessarily universal. So I'm not saying that money isn't important, so I'm just going to get that out the way. Money is important because it has been artificially constructed to actually have value in society. This is what people care about. I'm going to talk about the golden mean and what Aristotle had to say about that. Just to get to the point, for those of you who don't get to the end of this, abject poverty can cause you to live in misery, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about becoming wealthy. I'm talking about becoming a billionaire, becoming wealthy in a way that you have more money than you're able to spend. That is not the goal for everybody. It's not my goal. I didn't used to think that money was important at all. Like, I don't know, I guess because my needs were met, right? Because I never had to go hungry. I always had housing. But I guess I have come to the realization that it is important. It's just not the primary thing that is important. It is important because, well, from a political standpoint, unless you have money, then you're basically irrelevant. If you want to actually challenge power, then you need money to do that. I thought that you could just convince people to agree with you. Now that I understand how politics work, I do understand that money is important. It shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't need to raise money in order to have influence in politics, but it is the way it is. So money is a means to an end. It's not an end unto itself. You can use money to accomplish good, but just to become wealthy, no, I don't think that is a legitimate goal, at least not for my life. And maybe it is for other people's life. Now, in the abstract, people can say that they want money, right? Maybe they can say that they want wealth, but wealth becomes less attractive when you actually understand how wealth is acquired. Like, people may like sausage, but once they understand what goes into the sausage, the whole sausage making process, that you're basically just eating the scraps, the ears, the intestines, The waste products that nobody really wants to eat, right? Now that same sausage looks very unattractive. It looks very unappetizing. So on the surface, when you see somebody who's wealthy, you see them in some expensive suit, you see them going out to nice restaurants, and you think, oh yeah, I would like to live that way. But it's not until you actually understand what goes into that lifestyle that it becomes completely unattractive. You don't see the exploitation, you don't see them taking advantage of people, you don't see the shady business deals, the moral compromises that happen. Because some of these people who are wealthy are very cutthroat. On the outside looking in, you don't see what actually goes on in their business dealings. But nobody becomes wealthy by being honest, by being fair. That just doesn't happen. Nobody becomes wealthy through hard work, through their own merit. No, you become wealthy by being cutthroat, by screwing people over, by weaponizing the legal system, by giving yourself a monopoly, by creating artificial scarcity through occupational licensing, by manipulating people, by preying on their psychology. By extracting surplus value, by being a parasite. I did talk about some of this in my book, but I just want to be more explicit because I have talked about capitalism. I've talked about Karl Marx's critique of capitalism and what a parasite is. I guess I kind of want to go into detail about that right now. The reason why you can't be happy with wealth is because it's a race to the bottom. You can't win. No matter how much money you acquire, you're always trying to compete with someone else. So you never can be satiated. You're always trying to get more money. You want your house to be bigger. So even if you did get a nice house, if someone else has a house that is nicer than yours, then you're not going to be satisfied. You want something bigger, something better. You want the next car that comes out. You want, I don't know, I mean, it's just competition. It's just endless competition. And you can look at the people who are wealthy. You think they're satisfied. You think that because they have $100 million that they think they have enough and they're going to stop. No, they want more and more money. They're greedy, right? They want to be on the Forbes list. They want to be the wealthiest person in the world. They want to be at the very top. So, money chasing has become a religion. People measure human worth based on their wealth. By the way, this is a complete social construct. Money does not exist in nature. It does not. And to be more precise, we don't actually have money. We have currency. I know colloquially we refer to it as money. I do know the origins of how we got to money. I don't want to talk about that in detail because when I did that live stream talking about it, that live stream was taken down. There's a document I read. It kind of touches on it. Let me just give you a clip notes of it. Basically, people used to store gold, right? But then they hire people to actually store it for them. And instead of having to take the gold out to trade, they would just have notes that they could use to show that those notes represented a certain amount of gold. And then it was understood that the people who stored their gold would actually have that value if it was actually called upon to pay it, right? But then eventually there was no gold backing it, right? So then they were just issuing notes without any gold backing it. There were whole towns that were destroyed because these notes were just being printed out of thin air. And these people were run out of towns because of the devastation that they caused. In some kind of way, these bankers have convinced governments to accept their world banking system, their centralized banking systems, which now have a monopoly over all currencies in the entire world. Because before this, people would just barter, there would be fair trade, but now we have a complete fiat currency system in which, well, these players decide winners and losers, right? Because if you're on the winning side of it, if your currency is on the winning side, meaning your currency has value, they have artificially inflated, then your country is a wealthy country. Even though you don't produce anything, just because you have force, because there is no tangible value to this currency. The only reason it has value is because of our military, because of force. That's why we have all these wars, to force people to accept our money. I have talked about this in the past, but those videos, those live streams, they get many views. So I don't know if the people aren't interested in how this whole Ponzi scheme works. I think it's important because it's going to negatively affect us when people when they start dropping the US dollar, we're screwed because we don't actually produce a lot. And you can say that maybe America produces crops, fine. Fine, you can make that argument, but in terms of the goods and services that keep the world functioning, no. Your job certainly is not based on producing. You're more than likely going to have a service-oriented job. You're not connected to these jobs. These jobs, the producers, no. You're probably working in the office. You're probably a pencil pusher. And that's not to disparage you. I'm just saying, if you want to survive what's going to happen somewhere down the road, you probably don't want to be a pencil pusher. You probably don't want to be one of these parasites who don't produce anything. And I know people may take offense to what I'm saying because they feel that they work hard. I'm not saying that you don't work. I'm saying that you don't engage in productive labor. And unless you engage in productive labor, then you are expendable. If you engage in sales or marketing or some like bullshit job that doesn't actually, yes, you may make money. You may bring home a high income, but you don't actually generate wealth. When they start laying people off, you're going to be the first one cut because you don't produce anything. That's the parasite class. These people make a lot of money, but they don't actually produce wealth. They skim off the top. They exploit the actual wealth that is produced by the workers, right? I know I'm offending a lot of people, but this is the truth. This is how the economic system actually works. So yes, you can do all kinds of things to make money, which is to say that you can do things that take wealth from other people, but you don't actually create wealth because you don't produce anything. So yes, you can sell shit, you can market stuff, you can have commercials where people spend their hard-earned money and you become wealthy at their expense. That's not the same thing as producing. That is, for all intents and purposes, being a parasite. And I'm sorry, I'm not saying this to disparage anybody. I'm just really trying to explain how the economy works. That there are the producers, and then there are the parasites. And for whatever reason, the parasites don't know that they're parasites. They actually think that they earn their money. The attorney who charges $500 an hour actually thinks that he deserves it. He doesn't understand that the only reason he's able to do this is because the state has given him a monopoly over the practice of law. That in a free market where people were actually able to choose who they wanted to represent them, his services would be less viable. There would actually be fair trade. And the bartering system where labor is based on its actual trade value. No. What is it called? It's been a while since I've exchange value versus what is the term called? Exchange value versus trade value, right? So it's been artificially propped up. There's an artificial scarcity, so they get to charge as much as they want. These are the parasites who are going to fall hard when you actually have to produce. When the US dollar collapses, when this whole Ponzi scheme reveals itself, when the third world wakes up, because they are the producers, they are the ones who produce the cell phones, they give us the raw materials. Somehow they're poor, we're wealthy, even though we don't produce shit. We don't produce the cell phones. We don't give them, we don't, even though the raw materials don't even come from us, they're coming from Africa. The gold and silver is coming from Africa. The raw materials for pretty much everything that we consume is not being produced in the so-called developed world. Yet we take so much pride in being developed countries as if there's something noble about exploiting other people. And then there's exploitation within our own system. So even within their own class of parasites, they still exploit their own. It's such it's a race to the bottom where everybody's feeding off each other. I didn't plan on talking about this, but there was an attorney who I'm not even going to say how I know this person. This attorney recently offed himself, and everybody's looking up at these attorneys like they're like, oh, I want to be like them. They make so much money. They're so rude and arrogant. They feel so entitled. This is the way that they talk to people, like they're just so above everybody else, and everybody's envious of that whole status. But they don't understand that even within that whole class of parasites, they treat their own people like shit. So this attorney offed himself because they clear. I mean, this attorney. I'm not even going to say he was on a list of what is that list called? The top attorneys or whatever that list is. It was published in a magazine. And so on the surface, it looks like he's happy, he's successful. No. Why did this attorney just off himself? Because this shit is so fake. You look at it like they're so like this is the end all be all. Meanwhile, these people are working like 100 hours a week. It's like they work, they may go home and get 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and then they come right back. That's why they're so rude, because they think their time is so valuable. It's like, I'm not going to waste my time being polite and speaking to people and, having good manners. My time is valuable. I don't have time for this shit. So I'm just going to go around making demands, just being rude and entitled, talking to everybody as if they're beneath me. So these people clearly are not happy. I've talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs many times. And they're at the base level are the physiological needs, the need for food, clothing, and shelter. This is the most basic level of motivation. I don't have it in front of me, but what comes after that? The need for safety, This esteem needs the I don't I know I'm skipping steps, but um, whatever. I'm just cutting to the chase. These are deficiency needs: love and belonging, esteem. But then when you get to the growth needs, the self actualization, the appreciation for beauty, for aesthetics, right? The desire to become transcendence. Those are considered growth needs. And so the people at the bottom who are still focusing on physiological needs, which money is a physiological need, they think that you are deficient like them. They assume that everybody's focusing on physiological needs, the need for food, clothing, and shelter. Really? They don't understand that some of us actually care about growth needs. We care more about truth and justice and fairness. This is what we're motivated by. So the same carrot on the stick that works for them is not going to work for us. We're not going to sell our souls just to become wealthy. And they really don't understand your framework because they're not operating from the same framework that you are. Their motivation, these people can be bought and sold. You can literally give them money and they'll do whatever you tell them to do. And you can tell because these people just don't have a moral conscience. And I know because when I was a part of that world, I saw these people, I saw how they operated. I never was like them. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. A lot of this shit that I'm facing right now is I'm going to be completely transparent. It's probably because I self-sabotage. That I did have opportunities to become successful. I didn't take them because I didn't like it. I saw things for what they were. I didn't want to exploit people. I saw the legal system. Yes, I could have taken people's money. I could have sold my soul. I chose not to do that. I thought, okay, well, I can still be successful. I just don't want to do it their way. I thought there was another way to become successful without exploiting people. I was completely wrong. I didn't understand that this is how you become successful. It wasn't a conscious choice for me to be unsuccessful. I didn't know that I was doing that. I didn't know that I was cutting myself off from success, that I would live a life of poverty. I didn't know that. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just winging it. I wish somebody would explain it to me that I was actually destroying and sabotaging myself. I did not know that. Even now, there's probably choices I could do I don't think I could be successful as whatever if I had stayed on the track. I think I've already completely destroyed my chances of being a part of that world. But even now, there's probably things I could do to take other people's money, to separate them from their labor. I'm just not cut out for that shit. I'm just not. All people are not made the same way. When they actually understand the way people become wealthy, even something as being a business person, when you understand the value of something and what, like, the markup of a good, the actual market value versus like the actual cost of making it, the labor, the raw materials. And then when you understand, like, okay, those Jordans only cost maybe $15 to produce, and yet you're selling them for $200. That handbag didn't cost but $10 to make, and yet you're selling it for $5,000. When you actually understand the mechanics of it, the exploitation of it, yes, people are willing to pay for it. They're ignorant. They're stupid. They want to be flashy, and yes, you can prey upon their ignorance. And maybe you should. Maybe I should not give a shit because they want to buy it. Maybe I should take advantage of that. I'm just not built that way. I do actually feel guilty, right? I've been a part of that world. I've been a part of the sales world. But when you understand the mechanics, when you actually understand the sausage of it, the sausage making process, to just take people's money, and I see people do this all the time. I see people do it all around me. They're so successful. They don't even give a second thought to the manipulation of it. They're just so happy to take people's money. And what makes it so bad is that people are so willing to give it. So I don't even know if you're really taking advantage of them. They almost want to give you their money. They're so eager to just make you wealthy. Now, I talked about Aristotle and the golden mean. Basically, it's a vice to be too wealthy, and it is also a vice to be too poor. So the goal is to live within a golden mean, to not be too poor and not be too wealthy. Basically, money or wealth has no natural limit. I've talked about how money chasing does not lead to a good life because you become a slave to the invisible master. For those who are interested, you can go back and listen to that video I did about money chasing. It's actually in the title. I believe the title is Money Making Does Not Lead to a Good Life or something like that. But there are things that have intrinsic value that lead to the good life, like a life of leisure. Aristotle was big on friendships, like, you know, I talked about Aristotle, so I don't really want to go into detail about it, but there's three types of friendship. There are friendships based on utility, pleasure, and virtue. The friendships based on utility and pleasure are they don't last, but if they're based on virtue, they usually have more duration. But basically, you need to have some leisure. You need to have time to pursue things that are more important, like philosophy, art, beauty. You need time to think, right? Because I look at these attorneys, how they work so much, and again, it's not real work. It's not productive labor, but fine. They're in the offices. They're having all these meetings, and they're talking, strategizing about how to expand. They never really have time to enjoy it. So they may have some luxury apartment or something. I guess they take vacations where they go out or whatever, but it's so unrealistic because when you watch it on TV, you'll see these people, they're attorneys. Like, for example, you can watch Sex in the City. Miranda was an attorney, and they're always going out to lunch. They're always going out to club. No, you don't have time for that shit. You work all the damn time, and they're always on the phone and shit. No, attorneys don't live that way. That is completely unrealistic. I don't know why I keep talking about attorneys because they're not the only example, but this is the one that I'm most familiar with. But you could just even be a business because I've seen that side too. I work for a very successful healthcare company, which I'm not going. I've worked many jobs in the past. I've done sales. I've done a whole lot of shit. And these people spend so much time money chasing. They don't have a personal life. This is why their relationships fail. This is why they're not happy. And they try to compensate for it by focusing on materialism. Yes, they will have the designer handbags, which they pay so much for, and it's not even worth what they pay for it. But fine, they got a name. They got a Chanel bag. They got a Hermes bag. And so they get all this status. They have a nice car. These people are not happy. And I know it because I've dealt with these people. They're so miserable. The way they treat other people, they don't actually want to work all the time, but they're addicted to money, so they can't give it up. The fact that there is money on the table, they feel like they have to go after it. And it never ends, right? It never ends. These people are so unfulfilled. And the only way they can feel better is by being superior to other people. To say, I have more money than you, nana nana boo boo. But there's somebody who has more money than them. And the reality is the reason that they have to make the people at the bottom feel less significant is because they're jealous. They look at these people who aren't wealthy, and these people don't have the same motivation as them. On one hand, they feel like these people are so beneath them because they don't have what it takes to be as successful as them. But on the other hand, they are jealous of them because they don't give a shit about status. They're comfortable with their basic lives of just going to work, having a personal life, eating regular food, not going to these expensive restaurants, not buying designer handbags and shit, right? They could never live like that because they're so shallow. They're so superficial. They need status and prestige because without it, they would be nothing. These people are very hollow. There's no depth to them. When you talk to them, that's it. All they have is surface deep. They have their money, their prestige. When you talk about anything beyond that, anything philosophical, there's nothing. These people are so dead on the inside. But they assume that you are envious of them, that you want to be just like them. I'm going to be honest. I don't want to be like them. I could be like them. I chose not to. I don't want to be cutthroat. I don't want to screw people over in order to be successful. I don't think there's any honor in doing that. Now, I've also talked about the US dollar being hegemonic, how it's backed by the military force. Everybody's forced to accept the petrodollar. Money is basically a unit of exchange, but again, they do manipulate the exchange rates. The reason that these third world countries are so poor is not because they deserve to be poor, because the United States actually earned the wealth. No, it's because they manipulate the exchange rates. They offshore the inflation by devaluing their currencies. This is why what Trump did doesn't make sense. To try to impose tariffs it's not a tax on those countries. It's really a tax on the American people, because really all Trump would have needed to do was just, well, I know we don't really control the Federal Reserve, but what they could have done is basically manipulate the exchange rates again. And those countries can never get out of debt because they have to sell their goods and their raw materials in order to pay the debt. So they will be perpetually in debt. The only way they can get out of debt is to get out of the world banking system, because they will never be able to pay that debt. They're guaranteed to fail. So all these people who talk about how, oh, we're giving charity and generosity to these third world countries, no, you're not. You are robbing them blind, and you want to make it seem like you did some good deed because you gave them some worthless paper money. which will not have any value but for the fact that they're forced to exchange in the currency in which they are guaranteed to fail. Now, property is theft. Property is theft. It's not that property itself is theft. I've talked about this in my book. It's capitalism. It's the fact that capitalism is built on illegitimate property rights. That it's not the people who make productive use of it who become wealthy. It's the people who own capital, which is legal title backed by the government's monopoly on force. So because you own property, you get to exploit the laborers who make productive use of the property, and yet you don't actually produce anything. So the managerial class, the CEOs, they don't necessarily create any value from that product, yet they make record profits. Why is it that the CEOs are so wealthy, even though they don't actually produce anything? Because they're the decision makers. They decide who to cut. They decide, well, they make the big decisions that are operational. It doesn't have to be structured that way. It doesn't have to be structured where there's winners and losers, where the people at the bottom lose and the people at the top win. It doesn't have to be structured that way. These people are parasites. They extract the surplus value from other people's labor. They don't produce anything. What they do is they move capital. They trade stocks. They buy companies. And then they sell these companies all over again. So this whole financialization process where money begets itself, it gives an unnatural birth to itself. This is how they become wealthy. Stock trading, all this bullshit that doesn't actually produce anything. The Elon Musk of the world, the Mark Zuckerbergs, these people have ripped off so many people. And yet we're supposed to look up to them and respect them? No. The fucking Jay-Z's of the world, the fucking Diddy's. They don't produce anything. They don't build any. And I get so disgusted when people talk about building. They don't build shit. They take from the people who actually build. The builders don't necessarily become wealthy. And it is rigged because there are people who are not allowed in that class. There are people who have tried to do what these people do. They're not allowed in. They're not allowed to be a part of that top echelon. They get sabotaged. There's always a scandal about something that they did. They get accused of things that the public believes. I could go with examples like Bill Cosby trying to buy NBC, and then he has all these allegations. Michael Jackson has all these allegations because he wanted to buy Columbia. You're not allowed in, and everybody buys into these accusations, and they just say, "Oh, they just don't want to build." No, you're not allowed to build. It's rigged. They decide who's allowed in their club. The lawyers, the accountants, the consultants, these people are all parasites. And you'll listen to these celebrities talk about how they have to work so hard because, well, they make a lot of money, but most of their money is going to their handlers, the parasites, the lawyers. And this shit has been so orchestrated legally to where you have to pay all these people because of the lawfare that, okay, well, there's going to be lawsuits, there's going to be like PR stunts. And so you have to pay all so you have to keep working. And so money, it's currency, but just for the sake of this, because that's the colloquial term, money is a representation of labor. It is a fraction of your life that you spent working to earn it. So when you give someone your money, you're actually giving them your time. So if you only make $20 an hour, if you give somebody $400 and you're giving them 20, I mean, not really because there's still taxes, but roughly, you're roughly giving them 20 hours of your time. And of course, that $400 is going to be felt differently for you to give it because you actually have to work versus somebody else who just takes it. An attorney who charges $500 an hour doesn't actually work. They may be standing around drinking coffee and they're billing you $500 an hour. So it represents something completely different to you than it does to them. You have to take out a second mortgage on your home to pay a parasite, whereas they just sit there and collect it. And they don't even think about it. They don't even think about what it costs you to pay them. They're just like, give me my money, like the damn mob. I don't give a shit if I have to chop your finger off. Give me my damn money. And of course, this is respected because it's completely legal. The legal system authorizes this shit. So you respect these parasites, even though what they're doing is demonstrably evil and unethical. So they're going to use the psychological manipulation. They're going to make you feel insecure because you don't have what somebody else has. You're going to watch a commercial of the new car that came out. Oh, I need to get the new Tesla. The predatory advertising. You're going to fall for the okie doke that these capitalists use to separate you from your damn money. It works. It works like a damn charm. So many people watch these commercials and they're zoomed in like a damn zombie. Ooh, 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 I got to get that car. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I got to get this new electronic device. How mind controlled can you be? And then we have these grifters on social media. These people sit in their air-conditioned homes. They just talk into a camera. And they're collecting donations and super chats from people who actually have to work, people who actually have to put in real labor to give them their hard-earned money. Do you think these people actually feel guilty about taking? I would feel guilty. I don't ask for money. I'm constantly giving shit away that I could be charged. I gave my book away for free. Whatever. I don't just sit here and beg for donations. I don't. I could be doing that, but I actually feel guilty. And like I said, these people want to give you their money. They absolutely do, even though they can't afford it. I don't know what it is about their psychology that their self-esteem is based on giving away their money. They're invisible, and the fact that you acknowledge them is worth it. So the fact that you say, oh, thank you, and you call their name out, these people have such low self-esteem that they just want to be called out. Thank you for giving me $500. Thank you for putting my children through college and paying my rent. Never mind the fact that I'm living in a luxury townhouse or some luxury apartment and I'm living better than you. I'm actually going out to high class restaurants and buying champagne and lobster and shrimp, right? Me- Meanwhile, you're eating some damn hot pocket and you're giving them your money. How dumb, how foolish, how low self-esteem can you possibly have? And these people feel entitled to your money. They actually believe that they earned it. They actually will shame people for not being as successful as them because they don't have what it takes. They don't have the moral bankruptcy it takes to be successful. They're not going to sit on social media and scam people out their money. They're not going to run these scams and run their sob stories and manipulate people into giving them their hard-earned money. So there's something wrong with you for not being a parasite like them. Because everybody wants to be wealthy, right? Everybody wants to be morally bankrupt like them. This is the only goal in life, is to become wealthy, to be a parasite, to take other people's money. So yes, there are things that are more important than money. And of course, these things don't register with them because these people are operating on a completely different frequency. Money is the end all be all. They don't care about other things. These people are operating on the deficiency needs. They're not self-actualized. They don't even know who they are. Everything about them is based on social status, prestige, materialism, low self-esteem. They need external validation. They don't care about truth. No, they don't. They're not doing anything unless they're making money from it. And they believe that this is how you should move. They want to lie, cheat, and steal. They want to live a comfortable life. Get rich or die trying. No virtue. There's nothing honorable about any of the shit that they're doing. Their goal is to separate you from your money. They don't care about justice. No, they don't care about that. The fact that you're suffering moral injuries because the system is so unfair, they're not even thinking about that. They're just trying to get their cut. They assume that you are operating from the same framework as them. That if you could be wealthy, if you could be just as morally bankrupt as they are, you would do the exact same thing. It's not true. Some of us are built from a completely different cloth. I don't necessarily want to be poor. I guess I'm okay with being middle class. I would like to pay off my student loans at some point. But other than that, I don't give a shit. I'm not a money chaser. I don't want to be wealthy. If I had money, this is how you can tell that you're not the same as them. Every time I get like a large chunk of money, my first instinct isn't necessarily to go buy some shit that I don't need. No, my first instinct is to figure out who can I help, how, like, and that's probably why I'm in a situation. I always figure out like how can I help somebody else. And I know I say you shouldn't sacrifice. I'm not talking about blowing it on some random stranger, but somebody who's close to you, right? Always think about, okay, how, who can I do something nice for? These people don't think like that. If your co-workers were to fall on some money, you think they would do something nice, like buy everybody a nice dinner or something? No, they don't even think that way at all. Do you think they're trying to elevate those around? No, it does not even cross their minds. They're like, I got mine, you figure out how you're going to get yours. That's not the way I think. If I were to win the lottery, if I had $500 million, $1 million, my first instinct would not be to just go buy a flashy car and some gold chains. My first instinct would be to use that money to fight against the damn system. I would fund my own nonprofit and I would get out there and do some real activism, the things that I wish I could do right now. There would be hell to pay. There would be hell to pay. I would probably start with the fucking bar association. I'm just going to keep it real. But then it would trickle down from there. And the more money I got, the more chaos I would cause. If you gave me $1 billion, I would be fucking dangerous. I would be going around dismantling all kinds of systems. You think I would be hoarding that money and look at my car, look at my Rolex? Fuck that shit. I would be dismantling shit left and right. You give me some fucking money, I'll be the most fucking dangerous person. And give me a fucking $1 billion and see what I fucking do with it. And again, these people cannot imagine that. These people are probably in the audience right now thinking I'm lying. I'm making this shit up. No, I'm not going to say that I would be like, I'm not going to get some benefit. Yes, I would pay off my student loans. Yes, I would make sure that I had a house that was paid off. Yes, I would probably buy myself a car, not a flashy car, but a decent car that, you know, I don't even know that it would be a brand new car, a decent car. I'm not materialistic like most people. I'm just not. I don't give a fuck. But once my basic needs were met, then I would use the rest of that money to start tearing shit up. That's it. Start exposing shit that needs to be dismantled. Being a fucking threat to the damn system. And probably most of all, I would probably be paying people to get sterilized. I'm just going to keep it real. I probably would be giving some type of financial incentive for people to get vasectomies. I probably would be doing all kinds of shit like that. That money, but suffice it to say, when I die, that money is going to be spent. I'm not going to be dying hoarding money. No, I'm going to put that money to good fucking use. So if you're not a predator, then you're just not going to operate from the same framework. And they don't even understand. It's almost as if you're a completely different animal. They just believe that we're all the same way. They believe that if you had the opportunity to be like them, you absolutely would. No, I would not. This is the reason why I am where I am right now, because I have had those opportunities and I fucking rejected them. Even when I was, I'll stop because I don't want to talk too much about myself because people will take clips and make content out of it. I'll just leave it at that I had real opportunities to be cutthroat. Not only that, I have dated wealthy people and I could still be dating them. I chose not to. I gave up that lifestyle because this was not my primary motivation. If I wanted to take advantage of people, I'm not saying I could do it now because I'm older, but when I was younger, yes, I've had opportunities, okay? I was in circles, and I know some people could say I'm foolish because I didn't take advantage. I don't know. On one hand, I kind of regret not doing some things, but I think things happened the way they were supposed to happen. Some people can't be bought. Some people assume that everybody can be bought, that if you wave enough money in their face, they will actually do anything. No, not me. There's some things I just wouldn't do. It doesn't matter how much. I guess part of it is on a psychological level. The reason people compromise so easily is because of their survival instinct. Because they do want to live and they're trying to preserve themselves. So I just have to explain that my baseline is not the same as theirs. I don't give a fuck. And this is the reason why I took some of the risks in the past, because I didn't give a fuck. I didn't care about having a long life. I didn't care about surviving. I didn't give a shit. I always thought I was going to die young anyway. So the shit that I did when I was younger, I didn't think that I was really taking a risk, because I just thought I was not going to live long enough to see the consequences of it. I didn't give a fuck about money because I just, well, yeah, my principles were more important. And if I perish as a consequence of my principles, I didn't care. I was very reckless, very, very reckless. And I'm not saying everybody should be the way that I was. I don't know if it was a mistake or not. I don't know. I'm just telling y'all my story, my journey. The nonverbal cues, the things, the unspoken rules that everybody else seemed to know around me, I didn't pay attention to. I didn't care. I didn't respect authority. I didn't stay in my place. I didn't play by the rules. Truth was more important. I didn't give a fuck who you were. I didn't care if you were a judge. I didn't care if you were some powerful politician. I didn't give a fuck. I just said shit. I just said whatever I wanted to say. I did whatever I wanted to do. But the bottom line is that if these people wanted wealth, they would have it. They would have spent their lives pursuing money and doing what was necessary in order to obtain it. They're intelligent enough. They're capable enough. These people have had opportunities. And I'm not saying, I don't know what percentage of the population is like this. There's some people who are just not built that way. They just can't do it. They just don't have the constitution to be that cutthroat and ruthless. They don't want to be a part of Wall Street. They actually look at these people in disgust. And so the reason why these people would never bring me into their fold is because they already know. My track record proves like I am not going to, I guess I'm not going to be the type of person who can participate and not put up some type of resistance. So you're not going to you probably don't want to bring me into your inner circle and tell me your secrets and think that I'm not going to expose you. They already know that shit. That's why nobody would probably fucking reach out to, even the people who I went to law school with. They're not going to do that. They already know what I'm about. Like I say, I pretty much self-sabotage, but I don't think I did it knowingly. I don't think that I was aware of what I was doing. It's just that I had different motivations. Now, let me read some of these comments because I know there's a lot here. I'm afraid I disagree with you on this one. Money can buy a ton of land on which one can have a donkey sanctuary. I didn't say that you should live a life of poverty. I'm talking about becoming wealthy. You don't need $1 billion to do that. So yes, if you want to have a little homestead, then fine. That doesn't require you becoming wealthy. Hello. Thank you, Clurat. I'm not going to post your comment, but yeah. Um, what is productive labor? No, productive labor. You know how I learned what productive labor was? I was going to join the Peace Corps, and I have these worthless degrees. I have a political science degree, I have a Juris Doctorate, and I have a master's degree in public. Well, let me just leave it at that. I have a master's degree. Um, all so basically, there's three categories for the Peace Corps. This is where you go into these undeveloped countries, the global South, and you're trying to help them rebuild their economies. And it's been a while. It's been a while since I did that application. I decided not to do it. But you either need there's three types of jobs. You can either help them to start a business. You can some type of builder, some type of engineer, or something like that. And then the third category is if you have a worthless skill that's not usable, then you're going to be teaching English. And so, based on my political science degree and my law degree, they were going to have me teaching English, which anybody can do. But the only thing that would have saved me would have been my master's degree. They said that I had the skills to help them set up businesses. The Peace Corps doesn't pay much, and whatever. The only benefit is that your student loans will be in deferment, but basically you have to put yourself in you have to put yourself in storage and basically live off whatever stipend they give you, which is not much. So that's how you know that my other two degrees were completely worthless. No, you can't build an economy based on a Juris Doctorate or a fucking political science degree. Those are worthless degrees. They don't actually build wealth. No country is checking for those worthless degrees. MS worried about black fatigue, but don't want to address the oligarchs fisting and being a parasite on them for right. I can talk about that. I can talk about the fatigue of guys. Let me figure out how to word this. The fatigue of colonization. I don't know what to say because they always make it seem like when somebody comes to their countries, it's an invasion to be thwarted, right? Like they're the victims of immigrants pouring into their countries, but they never see it the other way around, that when they colonize their countries, when they impose their centralized banking systems and bring their degenerate materialistic cultures, they don't think that they're actually robbing them of their cultures, right? They think they're actually bringing them a gift of civilization. No, your fucking civilization is a fucking plague. You need to stay out their fucking countries and let them have their primitive lives, because all you're doing is forcing them to go into debt to subsidize your lifestyle. You want to take their diamonds, their gold, their oil, their raw materials. You want to force them to be slaves so that you can become wealthy at their expense. You're not doing them any fucking favors. So yes, the fatigue of colonization. Stay the fuck out their countries. Hi, Fatima. Money can only ease temporary things, but I still feel a metaphysical longing, like being a beautiful woman. Well, yeah, I guess money can give you that. Money can make you, if you get the right surgeon, maybe you can get all of your cosmetic surgeries to become a beautiful woman. I don't know. I hate the monetary system, whether I benefit from it. Yes, I hate it too. I hate it because it brings out the worst in humanity. It makes people so shallow and competitive. There, it's a vice. It's a vice to be so materialistic. There's nothing honorable about being a fucking money chaser. It makes you a slave to the invisible master. Um, right. Look, let me stop, Fatima. You're gonna get me in trouble with these comments. Yeah, Trump is something else. I've been meaning to talk about Trump. Yeah, Trump did sell out the American people. The only reason that he got into this stupid war, it wasn't for our benefit. It was for the benefit of that other country, which is a parasite on America. Right. For whatever reason, people love giving them their money. People love making them wealthy. If they were to come out with some product, all they got to do is slap their names on it, and everybody's going to be like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, I got to get that." Blood, sweat, and tears all gone with a simple transaction. Right. And these people, it's like they're getting exactly what they want. This is their system, by the way. This is what they support. They don't mind being slaves. They don't mind being used. They don't mind giving away their hard-earned money to make other people wealthy. There's something wrong with them, by the way. Something seriously wrong with them. A family size bag of chips is damn near the minimum wage salary in some states. Crazy. Yeah. Well, I don't know. In this economy, I don't even know how much a bag of chips costs. You probably could be paying $10 for a bag of chips. If you wish to buy all the land with money and see how that is nice, then so be it. Yet consider what it takes to even get there in the first place, for you must get such money by probably being extremely greedy and corrupted and still be greedy enough to buy such lands in the first. Right. Jamie Foxx had a 40-inch slip where he basically told on Oprah that she advised Jamie Foxx that he should buy land because land is the only thing that doesn't deteriorate. But then she was embarrassed when he said it publicly. From genocide, exploitation, greed, slavery, selective gatekeeping, colonization, and more. Yes. So even that makes you be happy, then so be it. And yet that still requires you to spend such an existence in such luxurious ways at the expense of all the horrible things that came with them. Right. Humans are the only animals that have to pay to live. Right. And that's what makes it so. I mean, I don't want to talk about procreation right now, but that's what makes it so unethical that it's supposed to be a gift, but it's a gift that you have to pay for. You have to pay to maintain your own involuntary existence. I don't know if anybody wants to come up, but I did post a link. Um, that was my rant for today. But if anybody wants to come up, you can. I'm just going to give you a little bit of time. Otherwise, I'm going to end this live stream. Chickpea, you said that you don't agree with me. Can you tell me why you don't agree with me? All right, y'all. I guess I am going to go ahead and end this live stream. I don't think anybody's going to come up. So just be sure to post comments. Let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me. If you think I should cover other topics, just let me know in the comments. Y'all have a good day.